So, good evening, dear students. This is Dr. L. Tirupati, Assistant Political Science, Government City College. So, today we are going to discuss about very important topic, that is forms of government. We know the various forms of government. We may get at least 5 to 6 questions from this forms of government. These are very easy and important, but we have to understand the difference between the various forms of government. Among them, we will start with the among them the popular ones is a parliamentary form of government. Another one is the presidential form of government. So, before going into details, we will have one understanding that the unitary federal form of government and the unitary form of government, and before that we will have to understand that what is democracy, that is a direct democracy and indirect democracy. These are the 6 things were mentioned as far our syllabus is concerned. So first of all we move on to this direct democracy. See, direct democracy, its name indicates that the direct democracy is nothing but it is a often called pure democracy, a system of citizens exercise decision making power personally or intermediate, like elected representatives are not there. This contrasts representative democracy. In other form of democracy is that indirect democracy. For example, in India, which type of democracy we have? We have the indirect democracy. The indirect democracy also known as the representative democracy. That means the people will elect the representative on behalf of them. That's why it is called Indian democracy. Type of democracy is called as a representative democracy or indirect type of democracy. So these two are very important, and the one important difference is that the direct democracy is very useful in some smaller countries like the Switzerland and some states in America. That is very useful. But the vast country like India, it is very difficult to have a direct democracy. That's why we have the indirect type of democracy. That means the people, the representatives are being elected on behalf of our voters or our people. That is the main area. That is the main thing. And in direct democracy, we can expect what are the features, what are the means, which were very much relevant to the direct democracy, like the referendum or plebiscite. Referendum or plebiscite is one of the important, and another initiative, and another important is recall. These are the three very important. That's why the direct democracy typically have these three features. One is the referendum or plebiscite. This is important. That means the voters approves or rejecting legislation or constitutional changes. That referendum means the people opinion. Plebiscite is also like that. So the people's opinion will be represented to the referendum. If the majority of if they accept, then the legislation will pass. Otherwise, if the majority of the vote against that legislation, that will be collapsed. This is one of the key feature of the direct democracy. And the another one is that the initiative. That means the citizens proposes laws or amendments that to go directly to vote. And another important feature is that recall. That recall means call back. Whenever you elected officials cannot move before it, that means if the elected officials are not doing in according to the wish of the people or will of the people, then the people will have the right to recall. That means calling back the elected representatives if they are not doing their actually they have to do the duties or their functions. These are the three. The questions may ask like that, which one of the following is not the feature of the direct democracy? So that's why these three we should remember. What is that? A referendum or plebiscite. Another one the initiative, and another one is recall. These three are very important. And the features of the features is that the definition rule directed by the citizens, that means voting on laws or policies. That means the people are given right to take decisions, especially the voting will be taken place here on existing laws or existing policies and mechanisms. The mechanisms are very important, that is the referendum, initiatives, recall and assemblies. These are the some of the few initiatives. These are the mechanisms which were set for the direct democracy. And the historical roots, we see that the ancient Athens, England, now the meeting, the ancient Greece, these are the where the direct democracy roots have been there, traced out. And in the modern use, we can see that direct democracy in Switzerland and selected states of United States and some assemblies and municipalities. Then what are the advantages of the direct democracy? That means high engagement, the active involvement of the people, and the transparency and the legitimacy and the voter education. These are the very much very important advantages by having the direct democracy. This is the direct democratic advantages. If you have the such kind of form, then we will have this advantages. Then what are the disadvantages? If you look at that, legislature, impracticability, risk of emotional populism, minority suppression, unequal participation, high cost. That means if the people frequently interfere into the policies of the government, then it will the government policies may collapse, and unequal participation and high cost. The election cost or the policy making cost may go high. That is the main drawback. So if we look at some questions, some of the multiple questions make appear like this. Direct democracy is based on the direct participation of what? The citizens. And the next one, which two devices are most widely used in the direct democracy? One is the referendum and another one is the initiatives. These are the two important devices are widely used in the direct form of democracy. And another important question is the device that enables citizens to propose legislation directly is called initiative. And another important question, the referendum is correctly described as a negative device. Referendum means it is a negative device in the hands of the people. And the fifth one, land gerrymander are referred to a form of direct democracy practice in where, that means in Swiss contents meetings. This is used in Switzerland. And recall refers to what? Recall refers to what? The questions may come here. Recall refers to what? It is a dismissing official before term ends. That means the before term going to end, before that the recall may dismiss that particular official. That is the advantage of the recall. When we compare with the indirect democracy, where we don't have this kind of arrangement. That's why if once the legislator elected, we have to bear them up to 5 years of their tenure, unless either they are doing good work or not. But until their completion of their term, we have to bear their that responsibility of the tenure. This is the one disadvantage in indirect democracy. But in case of direct democracy, they no need to bear their all the office bearers. They not going in favor of people or in according to the aspiration of the people or will of the people. And another is the pure form of direct democracy exists today only in which of the states? That means in Switzerland, cantons, and Appalachia, interconnected, and the Glorious. These are the some of the states or small areas in Switzerland, and which philosopher strongly supported direct democracy? That is the Rousseau. We know that Rousseau is one of the strong supporter of the social contract theory and the general will, and he also supported the popular sovereignty theory of popular sovereignty. That's why he supported the direct type of democracy. And as a result, we know that the French Revolution, and also he was influenced very much to the French Revolution, the core principle like that liberty, equality, and fraternity. And illiberal majoritarian in direct democracy refers to the risk of what? That means minority rights being overridden. That means the minority rights are being overridden by the majority. That's why it is called as like this. Next, in US, the region still holds frequent town hall direct democratic meetings in England. That is New England, where is the place where they still have kind of direct democratic meetings still today. And the citizens and the next question, the citizens initiated referendum that failed to pass through legislature but go directly to vote are known as direct initiatives. This is called directive initiatives. And deliberative referendum includes what? That means enhanced public deliberation, expertise, deliberative referendum. కొంచెం అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి, ఎవరు మ్యూట్ చేయండి, కొద్దిగా సౌండ్ డిస్టర్బెన్స్ వస్తుంది. The liquid democracy blends direct democracy with representative democracy. Participatory budgeting is often considered as a form of direct democracy. Participatory budget is often considered as a direct Grama Sabha in India are an example of oral local direct democracy. Grama Sabha
సార్ కొంచెం డిస్టర్బింగ్ గా ఉంది.
democracy. హలో
కొంచెం డిస్టర్బింగ్ గా ఉంది సార్.
బాబు కొంచెం ఎవరు మ్యూట్ చేయండి, ఎవరు డిస్టర్బెన్స్ అవుతుంది.
సార్ మీరు మ్యూట్ ఆప్షన్ చేసేయండి సార్, అందరిని మ్యూట్ చేసేయండి.
ఇక్కడ ఉందో okay. So in Grama Sabha is known as, for example, of oral or local direct democracy. That's why the question may come, which one of the following is the direct democracy in India? That means legislature, parliament, or Grama Sabha. That is Grama Sabha. We have to remember. And the initiatives, referendum, and recall are collectively known as direct legislation devices. These are the direct legislation devices. So these are the some of the questions related to the direct type of democracy. Now we move on to the indirect type of democracy. That means indirect democracy means it is nothing but a representative type of democracy. India is the best example for the representative type of democracy. So here the system citizens delegates their sovereignty to those who elect in periodical elections. That means in India we have general elections. Every 5 years we are going for general elections. This is called periodical elections. So indirect type of democracy, this is a indirect democracy. On behalf of the people, on behalf of the population, the elected representative is being elected on behalf of all people. That is called indirect democracy. India is a indirect type of democracy. So why? Because I know that I already explained that India is a very vast country. If you want to implement the direct democracy, it is very difficult. It is very difficult. That's why the constitutional frameworks of India have chosen the indirect type of democracy or indirect indirect or representative type of democracy. On behalf of people, the representative will rule the country. So in that in indirect type of democracy, we will see some questions. What kind of questions they may appear? Indirect democracy is also known as it is known as the representative type of democracy. And the next one, in the representative type of democracy, citizens exercise power through elected representatives. That means the people cannot directly exercise their powers, but they are delegating their powers to the representatives on behalf of their. That's why we are electing our representatives to reduce our grievances in day-to-day administration. మన సమస్యలు అన్నీ తీర్చడం కోసమనే మనం ఎన్నికల్లో మన ప్రజాప్రతినిధులను మన తరపున మనం ఎన్నుకొని వాళ్ళని శాసనసభలకి పార్లమెంట్లకు పంపించడం జరుగుతుంది. And another key advantage of indirect democracy is that it allows what? It allows the participation of larger population efficiently. That means when the indirectly follows the majority of the people, that means in large number of population will participate in indirect type of democracy. It is not possible in direct type of democracy because crores of people cannot participate at a one go. But in indirect type of democracy, many people they can actively participate in in administration efficiently. That is the advantage, and which is a common criticism of indirect democracy. That means indirect democracy having some criticism, that is representatives may become unaccountable or corrupt. Here is the main problem. Drawback is that in indirect democracy, the representatives may unaccountable or they may corrupted fellows. In India, we saw the corruption level are being increasing. If we say the history of the parliamentarians, according to the ADR report, the 35 to 40% of the elected MPs, they are having the criminal backgrounds and they have the corrupt backgrounds. It shows that majority of the people, the representatives, are having the corrupt backgrounds, criminal backgrounds. When comparing with the direct democracy, the indirect democracy having tilting towards more corruption. ఇక్కడ ఆ పరోక్ష ప్రజాస్వామ్యంలో అవినీతి జవాబుదారీతనం లేకపోవడం అనేది ఎక్కువగా మనకు కనబడుతుంది. ప్రత్యక్ష ప్రజాస్వామ్యంతో పోల్చుకుంటే ఈ పరోక్ష ప్రజాస్వామ్యం వ్యవస్థలో ఈ అవినీతి ఈ జవాబుదారం లేకపోవడం, బాధ్యత రహిత్యం అనేది మనకు ఎక్కువగా కనబడుతుంది. అందుకే భారతదేశంలో కరప్షన్ అనేది ఒక మర్రి గూడలాగా విస్తరిస్తూ పోతుంది సమాజంలో. అందుకే ఇక్కడ చూడండి ఇంకోటి, విచ్ మోడల్ ఆఫ్ రిప్రజెంటేటివ్ అలౌస్ రిప్రజెంటేటివ్ టు యాక్ట్ ఆన్ దేర్ ఓన్ జడ్జిమెంట్. అంటే దేని ప్రకారం వాళ్ళు రిప్రజెంటేటివ్ వాళ్ళ ఓన్ గా వాళ్ళు బిహేవ్ చేయడానికి అలో చేస్తుందంటే ట్రస్టీ మోడల్, డెలిగేట్ మోడల్ కాదు, ట్రస్టీ మోడల్ అనేది మనం గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి. These are the some of the questions, and after I will send you the important questions and the sum of the matter, and below that I will send you the important questions in the form of PDF. Okay, next one, these are the two types of democracy. One is, so far we have discussed one is the direct democracy, another one is the indirect democracy. Now we are moving on to the features of federalism. The features of federalism. Here we have the federalism and unitarianism. Unitary form of government and federal form of government. This is one of the famous form of government. India is having which type of federalism form of government? Means we are following the federal form of government. So here federal form of government have some common features. The questions may ask which one of the following feature is not relating to the federalism. Then we have to recognize that the difference between the federal form of government and unitary form of government. So in federal form of government, the written constitution is one of the most important feature. If you look at the Indian constitution, India is having a written and lengthiest constitution in the world. ప్రపంచంలోనే అతిపెద్ద లిఖిత రాజ్యాంగాన్ని భారత రాజ్యాంగం కలిగి ఉంది. అండ్ డోవల్ గవర్నమెంట్ అంటే ద్వంద్వ ప్రభుత్వాలు ఉంటాయి అనేది మనం ఇక్కడ గుర్తుపెట్టుకోవాలి. అంటే కేంద్ర స్థాయిలో కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వం ఉంటుంది, రాష్ట్ర స్థాయిలో ఆయా రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వాలు ఏర్పాటు చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. దట్ ఈస్ ఎట్ ద సెంట్రల్ లెవెల్ యూనియన్ గవర్నమెంట్ prevails, and at the state level respective state governments are being exercising their power along with the central government. And supremacy of the constitution, this is also one of the important. ఇక్కడ మొత్తం రాజ్యాంగమే ఆధిపత్యం కలిగి ఉంటుంది. అంటే రాజ్యాంగం ప్రకారమే వ్యవస్థలన్నీ పనిచేస్తాయి. ఎక్కడ? ఫెడరల్ గవర్నమెంట్ లో, ఫెడరల్ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్. అండ్ ఇండిపెండెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ద జుడిషియరీ, న్యాయ వ్యవస్థ స్వయం ప్రతిపత్తి కలిగి ఉండడం. దట్ మీన్స్ వాట్ డస్ మీన్ independent of judiciary? Means nobody can interfere into the functioning of the judiciary, and nobody can remove the judges without the proper approval of the majority of the MPs in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. That means they have the constitutional protection, they have the autonomy, they have full freedom while exercising their duty. They do not fear to anybody or any organization. That is called independent of judiciary. And another important feature is that division of powers. The division of power is also one of the important feature of the federal form of government. That means the powers have been distributed or divided between the central government, state government, as well as the local government. That's why India is having three tier of government. One is the first tier is the central government, second tier is the state government, and the third tier is the local government. That's the Panchayat Raj, urban or local government. This is called third tier. మూడు రకాల ప్రభుత్వ అంచెలు మన దేశంలో మనకు కనబడతాయి. ఒకటి కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వము, రెండవది రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వము, మూడవది స్థానిక ప్రభుత్వాలు, పట్టణ స్థానిక ప్రభుత్వాలు అని వాటిని మనం మూడవ అంచెగా పిలవడం జరుగుతుంది. ఇట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ థర్డ్ టైర్ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్. And another important is that the bicameralism. Bicameralism means two chambers of the parliament. If you take our Indian parliament, we have two types of chambers. One is the Lok Sabha, another is Rajya Sabha. This is called through two-tier bicameralism. In some countries, they have only single form of government, single type of legislature. That is one single house. In the similar way, some of the states have two chambers at the state level. For example, in Telangana, we have the legislative assembly and legislative council. This is called two-tier, the bicameralism at the state level. Okay, this is the feature. These are the features of the some of the features of the federal form of government. And we have to remember that the constitutional rigidity and the written constitution, independent of the judiciary, supremacy of the constitution, and distribution of powers or division of powers, and bicameralism. These are the some of the features of the essential features of the presidential form of the federal form of government. we have to remember. And if you look at the unitary form of government, it is contrast to the ఫెడరల్ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్. ఇప్పుడు మనం ఇదివరకు అయితే ఎట్లా చూసినామో సమైక్య ప్రభుత్వానికి విరుద్ధంగా ఉన్నటువంటి లక్షణాలని మనం ఏమంటాం, ఏకకేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వ లక్షణాలు అని చెప్తాం. దాంట్లో ఏముంటది, ఇన్ దట్ యూనిటరీ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్ వీ హ్యావ్ ది స్ట్రాంగ్ సెంటర్ and a weak states. For the best example is the Indian government. We can say the Indian form of government. Here, the central government is having most powers. At the same time, the state governments have the weak, and they have not as autonomy as the central is possessing at the central level. కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వంతో పోల్చుకుంటే రాష్ట్ర ప్రభుత్వాలు చాలా బలహీనంగా, ఆర్థికంగా కావచ్చు, ఇతరత్ర అంశాలు చూసినప్పుడు కేంద్రమే ఆధిపత్యాన్ని కలిగి ఉంటుంది. అందుకే కేసీ వేర్ అనే ఒక వ్యక్తి ఏమంటాడంటే, సాధారణ సమయంలో భారత కేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వము సమైక్యగా కనబడుతుంది, కానీ అత్యవసర పరిస్థితులు ఎలా మారిపోతుందంటే ఏకకేంద్ర ప్రభుత్వంగా మారిపోతుంది. ఇన్ ద ఆర్డినరీ సర్కమ్స్టాన్సెస్ ఇట్ ఈస్ లైక్ ఏ యూనిటరీ ఫార్మ్, ఫెడరల్ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్, బట్ డ్యూరింగ్ ది ఎమర్జెన్సీ ఇట్ బికేమ్ ఏ యూనిటరీ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్. అండ్ states not indestructible, and the flexibility of the constitution, and no equal state of representation, emergency provisions. These are the some of the elements of the unitary form of government. And single citizenship and integrated judiciary. For example, Indian judiciary, we look at the the Indian judiciary, we can look at the central level, we have the Supreme Court. At the state level, we have the High Court. At the district level, the district courts, and the municipal courts, and the local courts. This is called this structure is called as the integrated judiciary. And we know that all India services, IPS, IAS, and IRS, these are called all India services. And integrated elections machinery, that is, all elections are conducted by the Union Commission of India. These are the some of the features of a unitary form of government. If you know the features of federal form of government, you can easily identify the features of the unitary form of government. They are quite opposite to the unitary form of the federal form of government. And the next important feature is that the questions may we can expect 1 or 2 questions on the features of parliamentary form of government, the salient features of the parliamentary form of government. Here, these two form of government are famous worldwide. That is, one is the parliamentary form of government, another one is the presidential form of government. These are the two important types of governments. If you look at the features of the parliamentary form of government, that means here the parliamentary form of governments having two types of executives. One is the nominal executive, another one is the real executive. That means, if, for example, India, if you take the India, the real executive is that president of the prime minister of India. The nominal executive or the constitutional head is called the president of India. Then if you look at the American form of the presidential form of government, there is no two types of heads, executives. Only they have only one type of executive, that is the president of America. But in case of a parliamentary form of government, one is constitutional head, another one is the government head. That means the real executive. And the secrecy is the one of the core principle of the parliamentary form of government. The president, the ministers, and the individual concerned the party delegates, they should follow the principle of secrecy. They should not reveal everything before the people, but they have to follow the principle of secrecy. That's why one saying is there in parliamentary form of government: sink together, swim together, and sink together. కలిసి ఈదటం లేదా కలిసి మునగడం అనేది ఒక సామెత పార్లమెంటరీ ఫార్మ్ ఆఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్ లో చెప్పుకుంటారు. దట్ ఈజ్ స్విమ్ టుగెదర్ అండ్ సింక్ టుగెదర్. కలిసి మునగాలి, కలిసి ఈదాలి అనే ఒక సామెత ఇక్కడ కనిపిస్తుంది. అంటే అందరూ ఏది చేసినా కలెక్టివ్ గా చేయాలి. సో dissolution of lower house is one is the important. That means the Lok Sabha will be dissolved, and the leadership of prime minister, The presidential in a parliamentary form of government, the dominating leadership is here is that presidential form of government, the prime minister. And if you look at the presidential form of government, where the leadership who is dominated by the president of that country, that particular country. Here, but the president, prime minister. And another one is the majority party rule. In a parliamentary form of government, the majority party rule will be invited by the president of the president of that concerned country after general elections. Those who the party who wills the majority of the seats, they will be invited for the forming of the government. That is called the majority party rule. And the collective responsibility is very important. Under Article 73 73 clause subclass 3, under that article, the collective responsibility is very important. That's why they all go according to the principle of collective responsibility, principle of secrecy. Everyone should feel like a responsible person for their omissions and commission. అంటే వాళ్ళ తప్పుడు వాళ్ళు చేసే చర్యల ప్రతిదానికి వాళ్ళు బాధ్యతను, సమిష్టి బాధ్యతను కలిగి ఉండాలి. This is collective responsibility is a most important feature. It indirectly implies the accountability of the government, accountability of the elected representative. And political homogeneity, that means political homogeneity means the all political leaders will have one common ideology. There should not be heterogeneity. That means a differential ideology should not be there. There should be only one ideology, that is homogeneous ideology. The common ideology will be followed by all people. And the double membership, this is also one of the feature of the parliamentary form of government. So the next important form is that the presidential form of government. Here we say that we can discuss that the single executive. There is no two types of dual executive. That means ఇక్కడ ఒక కార్యనిర్వాహకవర్గమే ఉంటుంది, అది ఒక ప్రెసిడెంట్ మాత్రమే ఉంటాడు. And separation of powers, this is one of the important principle. The separation of power is very important. That means separation of power means the power will be separated from the legislature, that is the parliament, the executive and the judiciary. These three organs should act independently and they became a checks and balance. This is separation of theory, the separation of power advocated by Montesquieu. He was written one book is the Spirit of Laws. In that book he advocated the theory of separation of powers. It was very much prevails in America, separation of powers, and no dissolution of lower house. In the presidential form of government, the second chamber will not be cannot be dissolved, and the domination of the president, where in the parliamentary form of government the domination will be prevailed by the president of prime minister of India, but here the domination of the president. For example, we can see in America of late the Trump is dominating everywhere in the of late, because of the he is having the full domination in the form of the presidential form of government of America. And the single membership, where we have the double membership. In the parliamentary form of government they have double membership, but here only single membership. And the president and the legislature elected separately for the fixed term. Here the fixed tenure is there, and no responsibility. In the parliamentary form, in parliamentary form of government, the elected representatives are considered as a responsible, but here no responsibility. They don't have any responsibility for their omissions and commission. And here the political homogeneity that may not be exist, means they have the political heterogeneity. That means the political ideology, the people may have different ideology. They are not like the parliamentary form of government, where the all members of the elected representatives should have one political ideology, that is called homogeneity. These are the some of the differences in between the parliamentary form of government and the presidential form of government. We can expect some of the questions from these two type of. They may ask in comparative mode. The questions may ask in comparative mode. Which of the following form of government is having the responsible is called as the responsible government? That means the parliamentary form of government is always considered as the responsible government. And in which of the following form of government the lower chamber of the house will not be dissolved? That is presidential form of government. And another question we can frame that in which of the form of government the separation of power will be followed, maintained? That is presidential form of government. In parliamentary form of government, there is no such kind of arrangement for separation of powers in between the legislation and executive. For example, if you see the if you take the Indian Parliament as an example, the parliament elected MPs became the ministers, and that means the elected legislature and the elected executive, they have the correlation, the relations of a coalition power. That means they have the harmonious relations between the legislature and executive. But in case of presidential form of government, we don't have such kind of